We are live. Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm having fun today. How about you, Sam?
You're having fun today? That's good. Do you have fun every day?
Most every day.
Really?
You know why? Because I am very fortunate. I am the luckiest man in the world because I get to do what I get a kick out of doing all day long every day.
You got to work with me, so you're damn lucky.
That's true.
We'll go with that. All right. So welcome to episode 20 of.
I like how you spin things.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's always about you.
Always twisting in my favor. Welcome to the 20th episode of the FasterFreedom LiveCast.
Wow.
My name is Sam Prim. This is Brian Schroeder. Our esteemed partner Lucas is coming back from the beach.
On the plane right now?
On the plane right now, I believe.
Nice.
So he is coming back from the beach. So he will be here next week. So it is great to have you. Like I said, my name is Sam. This is Brian. We do real estate all day, every day. We have a flipping company we buy. We're going to buy, I think, close to 200 houses this year. We wholesale some, we rehab some, we keep some as rentals. Speaking of rentals, up here at this table, we have a $25 million rental portfolio combined, over 250 doors, plus a storage facility that's getting built, which is exciting. We have Faster Funds Hard Money Lending, which is a local hard money lending service. If you're in St. Louis, definitely use them. If you're in other markets, definitely get a hold of your local hard money lenders. They're a great source of capital to do whatever you want to do. You can flip, you can rehab, whatever you want to do. So get a hold of those hard money lenders if you are in any market wanting to do real estate. We have Magnolia, which is a traditional brokerage in their second full year. How many millions are they going to do?
I lost count. Like
you own it, you don't even know. I think it's going to be over 60.
Yeah.
Well over 60 million. And then we have this FasterFreedom company, which is our real estate company that we started a little bit ago.
You are the fearless leader.
A fearless leader of this fun education company, which is exciting. So thanks for joining us. If you're just hopping on, tell us where you're from. Say hi in the comments. We got an exciting show today where we're going to talk about what we wish we knew when we started building a rental portfolio. Like I said earlier, we have over 250 doors. We're going to talk about what we wish we knew as the camera moves a little bit when we got started building that rental portfolio. We're also going to show you a house we had that just pretty much burned down. We're going to talk about that here in a minute as well. So how's the market right now? What's your pulse on the market right now, Brian?
Oh, wow.
Before you talk, subscribe if you're on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, subscribe afterwards. All right, go ahead.
I've been thinking about the market a lot lately. Just how it is, it's incredible. As far as if you got a house that's priced right, listed right now, it sells first day or first weekend on market, typically for list price or higher.
As long as you're not trying to push the market crazy. As long as you're but you can push it a little bit right now, which is crazy.
Yeah. So, gosh, I don't even know. It might be the perfect strategy might not be to push it because most people that don't push the market right now get above list. So I don't know what the right strategy there is. But
all I know is if you're not being too crazy, you're going to sell. There was a house in my neighborhood that they listed at the last minute. They listed 25 grand higher than they were thinking to list, and they got over asking. Yeah. So it's just crazy how hot the market is right now. What's going on? Hey, Alex, good to see you. We see you quite a bit. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Hope you're doing well as well. So pay attention, ask questions on building a rental portfolio and the mistakes that we made, because I made a ton when I got started. Brian didn't make any, so it'll be mainly focused on me and all the mistakes I made. Give us a like if you're on Facebook and share, please, as well, and YouTube and everything. Make sure to comment. So the market is hotter than hot right now.
Yeah.
It's like how hot, right?
I got a theory, and it's primarily driven by low inventory. And
supply and demand. Everything goes back to supply and demand.
It's not because there's more buyers out there right now. It's there's less inventory.
There's probably less buyers than usual because of all this going on, in my opinion. But the market is, or maybe not less, but not a ton more. It's just
about the same. I looked at all the stats for last year compared to this year, last weekend, and the number of buyers right now, number of houses that close, is about the same as it was last year through the first 7 months of the year. But the number of new listings that came on the market for the first 7 months of the year is considerably down. So I think that's where it is. Number of buyers is pretty much normal. The new listings is down, so that's creating that what do you call it? That lack of supply, which is creating this demand, which is creating how values to go up because houses are going over list price.
And we're talking about just the St. Louis market, but we do know real estate investors around the country, and they are saying the same thing. Yeah. The market is crazy hot, especially in that first time affordable housing type market where there's really not much inventory. But even the beginning of the year, we were saying in our market that maybe $400,000 to $600,000 price range was a little bit slower because there was quite a bit more inventory. But even that's pretty hot right now.
Yes.
Everything is hot right now. It's crazy. So the retail market,
interest rates are as low as they've ever been.
Yep, that helps. So simple math is if the interest rate's lower, you can afford more house. If you can afford this much payment every month and you're paying less interest, you can just afford more house. So it is crazy right now. The retail market.
It's a fun market.
It is a fun market. Everything.
I love that part. One of the great things about real estate is a little bit of a strategy game. I love strategy games, So
yeah, it's fun. It is fun, especially when you have what is in demand. That makes it more fun.
It makes it more fun when you make money too.
Yes. Everything we've been putting out. Lucas isn't here. He's usually our sales guy. But leads were getting back to normal this week. So leads were pretty good as far as our Faster House company, which is our flipping company where we buy about 200 houses a year. Leads were up there pretty good. We had a few buys as well. We got a couple packages under contract recently, which is nice. So we're just kind of plowing through this and hoping to not over leverage ourselves and be out there, doing too many rehabs if and when the market takes a little bit of a dip. I don't know when that's going to be, but man, it's everything we get out there is going quickly. How are your rentals doing?
Rentals are great.
What occupancy are you at right now?
Well, we have 3 that are vacant right now at 124. One of them came vacant last weekend and we rented it yesterday. So what is that? It was vacant for like 4 days or something. Now they don't move in until like next week. So it's going to be vacant for like 2 weeks, but that's probably about the fastest turn we've ever done.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So anyway, that one, and we got 2 others that we're doing just minor little spruce ups on.
Yeah, we are at 100% right now, but we have a few people moving out in the next couple of weeks. So we're going to get below that. But right now, we are at 100%, which is pretty exciting. It's crazy. The retail market is super hot, but also the rental market's crazy hot right now. And I know there's probably going to be potentially some issues coming up if the stimulus goes down a little bit or unemployment, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So there's potential some rent collection issues, but we haven't seen a ton of that yet. How about
Hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened yet at all. It's been really, rent collection's been good. But just adding to what you just said, the unemployment benefit, that extra $600 that anybody's unemployed has been getting, expired last Friday. So I know the Congress is talking about, extending that, and I'm sure they probably will.
At some point, they got to get their
haven't
agendas in and
That's
everything.
right.
So if you're just joining us, make sure to like and share this video. Our goal of this video and every single week in this update is to provide as much value as possible. We're not asking for anything. We're just trying to provide value and give feedback and answer any questions you have. So the more you share, the more you like, the more people see it, the more value we can provide. So we would appreciate if you do that and comment in the comments where you're from, what you're doing, and when we get into some of our actual topics, then you can definitely ask questions. We got a question as I'm speaking. How long are occupancy inspection takes? And that's a great question because things are a little bit up in the air with all the different municipalities. So can you want to shed some light on that?
A little. I'm not super involved in that, so but I'll tell you kind of what I hear, and I'm being a little bit on the sides. But in the St. Louis area, we have every city has its own occupancy department.
Like 90 of them or
and
something,
we got,
right?
Yeah, like you said, we got a ton of cities. So it depends a lot on which city you're in here. Because like I was just talking about that, we had one come vacant right here in St. Charles, and the inspector was out there the next day and it passed. So it was super easy. But I wouldn't say that's normal. I would say, a week or 2.
I would say, Kyle, I'd say they're probably taking in our area a little bit longer than usual, but nothing crazy. They're right when all this hit, everything shut down, and that was bad. But now that things are starting to open up a little bit, and I understand there's a lot going on out there with the new cases and all that kind of stuff. But in general, people have a little more grasp of what's going on, and so it's taking a little bit longer, but I wouldn't say anything more than a week or 2 at the most usually. So
somewhere in there.
In our area, occupancy inspections have not been taken long. So let's get into a fun part. We just had a house pretty much burned down. So do you want to talk a little bit about what are they called? Mob cocktails, or what are they?
Molotov cocktails.
Molotov. I still don't know how to say that. Molotov cocktails. So we had a house that had a tenant in place that actually wasn't living there. It's actually in our flipping company, a house we bought that we're trying to sell. We had a tenant that wasn't there. She was in the hospital, and somebody threw a
Molotov cocktail.
When I point to you, say the word. They blew it.
You like cocktails. Molotov.
I love Tito's and club soda, that cocktail, but not Molotov cocktail. Anyways, one got thrown in the house. We're going to show you some pictures of it beforehand. So here are some pictures of what the house looked like when we bought it. So the house, as you can see there, the house is in great shape.
This is kind of maybe I'm going to say a lower end neighborhood, maybe a C- area.
Yeah, it is, but this is a great house. So
yeah,
we got it under contract, had a tenant in place. We actually had it under contract to sell, but fortunately for the person who's going to buy it from us, they ended up not closing on it.
Why didn't they close? Do you know?
I do not know the reason, but as you can see, it's got a few issues, but it's a nice house. It's a little bit rougher area, nothing crazy, but it's a nice house. And they got a Molotov cocktail. I know how to say it now. I'm just playing a game. So we got one. One was thrown in there a couple weeks ago, and nothing happened. It didn't catch on fire. So we talked to the police department and didn't really get anything out of that, and because nothing happened. And then come this weekend. All right, so the first cocktail Rachel was telling me was thrown before closing, so that's why the buyer backed out, which was smart on their part. So here's this beautiful house, what it looks like before the cocktail. And then what happened after the cocktail is there's where it went in, and there's a bullet hole, and then that's a flat screen TV. It got obviously burnt with the fire. There's, you can see the walls are charred. This house is there. You can see, look at that fan. Looks like a sad fan.
And it is sad. It's bummed out.
It's like, what the heck just happened? And then look at that. There's a couch. All you can see is the springs, and there's, like I said, the lady's in the hospital. I think she's having a baby, and look at, there's some kid stuff. It's just sad. It got thrown through there, and it is a mess. So Brian has been taking that down, talking to the police, the insurance agent. So we'll talk about this a little bit, but this kind of stuff unfortunately happens sometimes when you're dealing with rental properties in kind of those C+ areas.
Yeah, so just a little bit of a story to this. So this is actually in our flipping business. We were going to buy this house and resell it. We actually had it assigned. We were going to be closing on it the same day, buying it and selling it the same day. And like we just said, the buyer backed out last minute. But I've been flipping houses for 18 years. In our flipping business, we have what we call a builder's risk policy. It's a little bit different than a standard renter's policy. So if you're buying rehabbing houses, I always recommend people do a builder's risk policy rather than your standard rentals policy. And I think over that 18 years, I don't even know how many houses we bought, but it's been thousands. And this is the first claim I've ever had on our builder's risk policy.
Really?
First one ever.
You partner with me and Lucas, look what happens. Congratulations, way to go. We like to keep it interesting, don't we?
It is interesting. So anyway, like Sam said, they apparently, and this is arson. I don't think there's any question that there's arson involved here. The thing that's not 100% sure, but we think is the case is basically an ex-boyfriend is kind of who everybody thinks is the case who did this. He tried to throw a Molotov cocktail through one day. He did actually throw it through a back window, but it didn't ignite. That's a good way to say it. A week later, he comes back and he does it again, and obviously ignited. Tenant was not in the house, so everything, nothing there.
No injury, which is great, but yeah.
But yeah, then the question becomes, how does this work? So I'll just tell you really quick numbers. Well, I'll tell you approximate numbers. We bought this, so in the 20s. We insured it in the 40s for how much we wanted to insure it for. We had a $10,000 deductible on our builder's risk policy. So we're going to get a check for like about 30 grand.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, and I just got off the insurance company. We'll probably be getting that check in about 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
Once we get that check, you still got a freaking burned up house.
Yep.
And we're still the owners of this shell in a C- neighborhood.
Shell, I thought you were going to say another S. Shell's good. This is, in case my daughter's watching, I'm glad you said the word shell.
So if you ever run into this situation, I don't know exactly how this is going to play out. I think we're going to try to sell it for $1. I don't know if we'll be successful on that. That way it gets it out of our name and becomes somebody else's issue.
We'll update you with what's going on
Yeah.
as well. So it's an interesting story for sure.
If we can't sell it for $1, we'll have to tear it down because you can't just leave it like that. City will be all over our ass. And then Sam may be going over there on weekends to mow the vacant lot that we
Perfect. I would love to. That sounds exactly how I'd like to spend my weekend. So that is an interesting story we wanted to share with you. I'm sure you guys that we are active in the business and things like that happen.
Has anybody else had a fire out there, and how did it turn out?
Yeah, put a comment if you had a fire, if you know anybody that had a fire. But we are going to talk now about building a rental portfolio. We have a $25 million rental portfolio built up of mainly single-family houses, a few apartment complexes, and we have a storage facility in there as well. But we're going to talk about what we wish we knew when we got started. So if you're watching and you don't have any rentals and you want to, or you just have a few rentals, and shoot, if you have a bunch of rentals, it's probably you probably get a lot out of this. So let's dig into this. Let's talk about what we wish we knew, and we each have written down what we wish we knew when we got started. I'm guessing they're going to be a little bit different. So let's.
I bet they are too. I can't wait to hear what yours are. I don't know what Sam's things that.
So let's chat a little bit about what we wish we knew, and in the comments, we'd love for you guys to comment and get feedback on what you learned, lessons learned, and we can kind of go back and forth and talk a little bit about what you learned when you started to build your portfolio. So put some questions in there. We can talk about that as well. So I'll go first.
Go.
What is the first thing I wish I knew when I got started? So I have an amazing wife. Her name is Courtney.
Yay,
and I did a horrible job communicating with her when I got started. So she puts up with my craziness all the time. She is awesome. And we argued a little bit when I first got started, but it's 100% my fault because I did not communicate with her what I wanted to do. I just said, I'm doing it. It's a smart thing to do, whether you like it or not.
That's not the way to communicate with your wife.
No, because I mean, at the beginning, Luke and I were 10 hours Saturday, 10 hours Sunday, 20 hours a weekend minimum at houses for the first, 6 to 8 months, doing all the work ourselves and learning. And yeah, it wasn't very good. So I learned my lesson and started to communicate with her. I actually put some PowerPoint presentations together and gave her some PowerPoint presentations to explain what we did in the past, what we're doing now, what the business is going to look like in the future, what it can do for us. And that's my mother-in-law. Language. She's scolding you for language. And she's saying nice compliment to Courtney. Yes, Courtney, your daughter is awesome. So I learned my lesson though after, I say pretty quickly, but it probably took a few months. And I started to give some PowerPoint presentations and update with her on just seeing the vision, because I had this vision in my head, but I wasn't explaining it to her, and I was not home spending money and time and all this away from home doing stuff, and I needed to do a better job explaining to her what the vision was. So that was my first lesson learned before I even got my first rental, and as I was starting to grow my portfolio.
I'm glad you started off with that one, Sam. That's an awesome lesson for anybody out there that's married or just as a partner or whatever. So it's super important to communicate with your spouse and your family and your partner. Good learn. I'm glad you learned that quick, because
yeah, I'm glad I did too.
Otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah, probably not, or I wouldn't know. Well, yeah, it never got that bad. I just annoyed her for good reason quite a bit. So we got that nipped in the bud, and now I'm sitting here talking next to the Brian Schroeder.
Well, holy smokes. Interesting. Rachel, is it my turn, Sam?
Let's get to George's question. Right. Who do you use for insurance?
We use Lindenwood Agency so great question, George. Thanks for the question.
George always has good questions.
I sometimes throw out quick answers, and I got to stop doing that. I need to take time to explain it correctly, I feel like. So great question, George. So we have different insurance company for our, what I'm going to call commercial insurance, our builder's risk insurance, or so on houses that we buy, rehab, and resell.
So real quickly, you don't go to State Farm to get rehab insurance on your big company like that. You need to have a different insurance policy for a vacant house that's getting work done on it. So
yes. So we use Lindenwood Agency. Do you have that handy, Rachel? Can you throw that up there?
We'll put up there for local. If you're not local, there's a ton of companies wherever you are that do this as well.
Exactly. So Lindenwood Agency is basically just an insurance broker. They're a commercial insurance broker here in St. Charles, Missouri. So that's who we use for our flips. And Rachel will throw their name and phone number in the comments here. And then on our we don't have our check yet, I'll tell you that, but the insurance adjuster has been very prompt, and I've been, this fire just happened, was it Thursday last week?
Yeah, it happened at the end of last week, yep.
So, it's been about a week, almost a week, and so they've been very responsive. Now we don't have our check yet, so I'll let you know when we have a check in the bank account. But I'm confident that things are going in that direction.
Right as the check, Ryan.
Going in that direction quickly. So yes, Lindenwood Agency. And then for our rental portfolio, we have the same insurance company. We actually use different agents because I have a relationship with, so both Sam and I use Shelter Insurance for our insurance on our rental properties, and they're a great insurance company. I think they're mainly just in the Midwest. I don't know.
And they have a product built for rentals. Like I said, you know, your State Farm, your Progressive, your bigger companies, they're made to insure residential cars and houses. Their product is not around single family houses or whatever, duplexes, whatever, rental properties, because those, the fact that Shelter does that and their product's built around that. And there's other companies out there that are great too. They are much more inexpensive, but they also provide great, great coverage. It's not like we're not covered. It's just much more inexpensive because we have so many houses with them.
Yes. So we use Shelter Insurance for our rental houses, so our occupied rental properties. And John Mike is my particular agent. So
he's mine too.
Oh yes,
yeah.
I thought you guys had a buddy that was a Shelter agent. Am I thinking of somebody else? I must be thinking of somebody else.
Yeah.
Why was I thinking that?
I don't know, Brian. I don't know what goes with brain fart. Maybe you'll think that's funny. All right, what is your number one?
We got a question. Should we answer the question?
I didn't even see it. Alex, great question. Thank you, Alex. We appreciate that, my friend. Newer investor here. I'm discovering just how difficult it is to find my first bird property. I'd like to hear how each of you found your first property and so on. That's a great question. We got another one coming. So yeah, Alex, I'll go first. Let Brian think on his a little bit. So
it was a long time ago. I got to remember.
I know, Brian. I think they have cars back then. So yeah, Alex. So yeah, that's definitely difficult when you're just getting in, which I've seen you at our local buyers club meeting. So go get meetup, get yourself introduced to people in the industry through local meetups and through online Facebook groups as well, local real estate Facebook groups. But it's hard to find. At first, it's kind of hard to find. Now it gets a little easier as you get known and know people, and they understand that you're a good buyer and that you're going to pay cash and you're going to close fast. So you have to build that relationship out. So it's going to take a little bit of time. But I got my first deal at the MLS. We had an agent. Actually, Lucas's mother-in-law was an agent, and she brought us several deals. Those back in 2014, 2015, back when you could get a few more deals on the MLS. The space wasn't quite as saturated as it is now. So we got a first deal on the MLS. It was a bank foreclosed property. There's deals on the MLS now, but they're a little bit harder to come across. So what I would do, Alex, before I pass this off to Brian, is I would definitely keep coming to our club, go to other clubs in town, get to know as many wholesalers and real estate agents as you can. That's a great place to start. You can drive for dollars or do your own marketing. That gets a little more into it, but just get to know as many people as you can. You're going to come across a good deal. You just gotta get in front of the right people. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, and Alex, really quickly on my first property, I started buying. I started Faster House in 2002. First couple properties we bought were off the MLS too. So the way I bought my first properties off the MLS, it's not the way I'd recommend you to do it today, just because, like what Sam said, there's just very few deals out there on the MLS today. Where we're buying the majority of our properties, and we're adding to our rental portfolios, but we're also buying a lot of houses in our flipping business. And we do a lot of direct to seller marketing, and that's a whole nother game. Unless you really love that, I wouldn't recommend that. But if you really love that, there's ways to do direct to seller marketing, and that's using direct mail and Facebook and websites with SEO and stuff. I wouldn't recommend that unless you really enjoy that and you really want to dig into that.
You got some money to spend more than 1 month. You can't send one batch of direct mail that costs $1,000. You'll get deals off direct mail, but you probably got to spend $1,000 for 5-6 months in a row, and if you get a few deals, and it'll pay for itself, but you can't send it one time.
Yeah, and on our direct to seller marketing, we're somewhere in the $2,500 to buy a house, something like that, give or take a little bit. So it costs money to find deals if you're doing direct to seller marketing. But what we recommend people do right now, and what we also do a lot of, we're probably going to buy, 70, 80 houses this year that are not paid from paid marketing. It's just from building relationships.
Probably close to 100. There's a couple of packages in there.
Okay, so through relationships, and you can do this, Alex, just as well as we can. It just takes time building those relationships, but we primarily buy from wholesalers, real estate agents, and then what we call connectors. And you gotta find those guys. Wholesalers you can just find at the clubs, or you can just get on Facebook groups.
Those clubs, like the bar clubs?
Yeah, that's right.
Does that get dancing?
That was actually very
good. Real estate investing clubs, what do you mean? Rachel likes when I dance, so she sent it there, so I had to dance for it a little bit.
Yeah, so find them at the clubs or on the Facebook groups. How do you find the Facebook groups?
It's super easy. So just go at the top of your Facebook and search real estate investing groups, and Facebook knows where you are, I promise. So they'll know what market you're in. But just in St. Louis, there's probably 10 in St. Louis. And other markets have even more, and they have anywhere from 5,000 to 20,000 people that a lot of them are tire kickers, but a lot of legitimate players are in there. So they're super easy to find. Facebook has your own personal page, and then there's business pages, and there's groups. The groups are that little circle with those people, that little icon. So that's where you find your groups. They're super easy to find. I'm in like 100 of them around the country because I like to put our YouTube page out and stuff like that. But there's definitely, you can get to know wholesalers through that groups for sure.
And when you find a wholesaler, so let's just dig into this question a little bit more so Alex can have some tangible information to use. So when you find wholesaler wants somebody that's going to, when they call them about a deal, go out, look at the house quickly, analyze it quickly, and then give them direct feedback, either in the form of a contract or in the form of, I'll be, if they're asking 100 grand and you're only going to be at 75, tell them you're going to be at 75. Don't just not call them back or, and then it's about building the relationship. Wholesaler wants somebody that's going to make a decision quickly and for sure have their financing together. So make sure you got your financing together, whether that's you're a cash buyer, you're using a hard money lender, or you got a proof of funds with a bank or something, but some form of quick way to finance a deal, and then do what you say you're going to do. That's what a wholesaler wants. And there's a lot of wholesalers in there, and you can find good deals from wholesalers. Then the next step beyond that is real estate agents. Now, you want to build relationships with real estate agents, and I always tell everybody, every good real estate agent out there has several investors that they think about when they have a deal that comes, when they get a listing that is going to probably sell to an investor. And so you want to get on that short list for those real estate agents, so when they got one coming up, they give you a call. So you're knowing about it before it just shows up in the MLS. So same way with wholesalers or real estate agents, you got to build relationships. So you got to find those ones that are investor friendly, and then just go out and look at their deals and make offers, and you'll find some good deals out there. You're doing the right thing, Alex. Just keep with it.
Yeah, just to round that out, it's going to take a little while, but if you become the top 2 or 3 investor for 5 real estate agents and 5 wholesalers, you would have more deals than you know what to do with for however many long you want to buy. I mean, if you're wanting to buy 100 houses a year, that's different. But if you're wanting to buy 5 to 10 houses a year, 5 good agents, 5 good wholesalers, that's going to be more than enough. You have to be on their top, 2 or 3. Yeah. We have several that, I have a couple that only call me first and give me the first shot, which is great. But you have some that probably do that. But we have a few that we're the top 2 or 3 they call, and then the same 3 people show up at every house, same 3 people get bids, same 3 people can close, and whichever's the highest, and we just understand that there's going to be another one if we don't get it. Yeah. So there's a couple more questions. Let's answer this one. Then Kyle, I see you got a couple questions on there in comment. I want to get to Brian's. There's one of his on there that I read when he was talking. But
which one?
That one, I thought it said bosses. It doesn't say bosses. I would say probably the MLS or the Facebook is more reliable than the MLS currently to find good investment deals. You can find some on both. Both are saturated, but more deals get done on Facebook, in my opinion, than the MLS for investors.
I would say
right
that too. For good deals.
For good deals for investors.
Now you'll have to weed through a bunch of crap deals on the Facebook.
Macy's bunch of crap's okay. You can say crap.
Well, I keep saying good stuff. My terminology is getting like smaller or something. All my wording is getting bleeped.
You hang out with me too long.
So yeah, use the Facebook groups. There are definitely good deals on the Facebook groups, but there's also a lot of junk deals on the Facebook groups. So that's just what you got to deal with.
I see your question on replacement. We'll get to that in a second, Kyle. And also, this is great. You talk to property management companies and see if they have the owners. That's a great. We're starting to do that a little bit. That's a great tip, Kyle. Property management companies either own the properties or they know the owners that own them, and they know when they want to sell. Great tip, Kyle. All right, let's get
Which one do you want me to go with?
Well, this one, I kept thinking it said boss. I kept thinking it said, listen to this. I kept thinking it said tenants are bosses. What does it say?
Is my handwriting that bad?
What does it say?
It says tenants are liars.
That's not bosses. That's not the same thing.
All right, so back to what are we talking about today?
What we wish we knew when we got started building our rental portfolio.
When I started building
$25 million rental portfolio. portfolios.
When Debbie and I started building our rental portfolio, and my wife and I partners on our rental portfolio, when we started, I remember the first few tenants that we met. They were so nice, you know, and they showed up with like $100 bills sometimes, and I thought that was an awesome tenant. But I quickly learned that most tenants are liars.
Yes, I remember our first tenant. I'll let you finish what you have written down there. We gave them a bottle of wine and a card, you know, when they moved in, just thinking, make this your home. And, you know, they didn't do anything too bad, but probably $1,500 worth of damage when we left, just holes in walls or something. It's like, well, don't need to waste a $3 bottle of wine. So,
and I don't mean to say anything bad about tenants, because I love our tenants. Our tenants are one of our greatest assets.
I think just saying you have to assume that at first.
That's correct. That's a very good way to say it, Sam, is whenever you get an application in on one of your rental properties from a tenant, assume everything on that application they're lying about. And then you just kind of got to go through that application and prove to yourself that everything that they say is truthful. Because tenants, we found a lot of tenants do falsify the information that they put on there.
And there's a lot of them that are telling 100% the truth. You know, you just can't assume that that's the case, because then you'll get in trouble a little bit. But
that's a good way to say it.
A lot of them do, but a lot of them make up stuff.
So a couple of things that you need to, we can go through our whole tenant screening criteria, but I don't want to do that today. What I would tell you to do, if you're in Missouri, there's a service out there called CaseNet, where all, and you can just Google CaseNet. It's the Missouri courts system.
Online.
It's online. So if anybody's ever been evicted, you can just look up their name and you can see it. If they've ever had a felony or anything along those lines, it's just all online. It's public information.
Don't look me up on there.
What'd you do, Sam?
I'm just kidding.
So anyway, use that service. That's what it's there for. I'd also just kind of like what I said earlier, go through their app and verify everything on there. If they say they're married, then verify that they're married. What happens more often is they'll say they're single, and then and quite often they're doing that because their spouse has an eviction on their record, or a
violent crime or something like that.
Yeah, or they put at the last house they had the gas bill in the husband's name, and you know they owe $2,000 to the gas company or something. So just verify everything on there, and you can verify by so many ways.
And also you can look up your friends and family on CaseNet too.
Yes, you can. It's kind of fun. Party games, right?
Yeah, there you go. How many? We used to play the games in college. Back at college, we used to guess someone's net worth, and whoever was closest, you Googled it, was able to give a drink. So you can do that with CaseNet. You know, whoever you can have somebody you know, and however many reports they have on there, you got to give a drink. Right. So that's a drinking game you can play.
I love it. And then another one that's really simple that we find. So we have a lot of renters, obviously, and when our renters leave and they go to somebody, they obviously go rent somewhere else. It's so rare that we actually get another landlord that calls us to verify, just as a landlord referral, I get a landlord reference. So I just always recommend to your landlord references, make sure that you check with the current landlord and the previous landlord. We try to do two, current landlord and previous landlord, just to get a good reference on how they paid and how they took care of the property. So we didn't do that when we first started.
And Alex, Brian's kind of answering your question right now, the screening process of going through their credit report, which you can, there's places online you can get that. So if you have property management software, it probably does that for you. But credit report, the big thing, verifying income, verifying the information on the app, and then talking to a landlord. I feel like their old landlord and current landlord are kind of the biggest screening criteria that you want.
Yeah, so income.
Verify income.
Make sure it's at least 3 times. We use 3 times net income.
We use 3 times gross, but yeah.
3 times net or gross income. Verify the landlord reference, and then run credit. On the credit report, we look at the score, but more importantly, we look at, is there any evictions or what do they owe? Do they owe the current gas company, you know, they have a judgment out
Is
there.
it a couple student loans from a while ago that are having trouble? Stuff like that isn't as big a deal as
we see medical bills all the time. We don't really care that much.
And
if they don't pay
we look
their
at gross, but we also take into account like if there's garnishments or child support. You know, we look at that gross, but we do. I guess we can look at that, but we mainly look at gross. How do you title your property so that your tenants can't see who owns it? Yeah, we own everything in an LLC.
Yeah, same here. We just own everything in LLC. I know some people.
And then have registered agent as somebody else.
Yeah, registered agent is just our attorney. That's the way we do it. I know if somebody wanted to really look into it, they could probably figure out that we're the owners. But
we're not doing anything. If they find out we're owners, it's not the end of the world. Yeah, of course we'd like to avoid that, but. Quickly answer your question, Kyle, and then we're going to get on to, I think I'm going to get my number one thing next.
All right.
The number one thing I wish. I got 4 on there. I don't know if we'll get to all 4 of them, so I wanted to get my number one. So do you do total replacement on your roof? So I think they're the same. We don't do that. You know, if roof goes out, the deductible is high enough to where it doesn't really always make sense to replace the roof.
We have a $5,000 deductible on all of our rentals. And
same thing, same here.
We used to have replacement when we first got started. I switched over to an actual value several years into it. And when I switched over, I remember I was saving like $3,000 a month. And I thought, well, shit, I can replace a roof every 2 months for the money.
Again.
Why do I keep doing that,
It's
Sam?
okay. But I know what you're saying. You're saying, yeah, you're saving enough having the higher deductible that it doesn't make sense that if you have to replace a couple roofs a year out of pocket, it makes more sense than paying extra every month because of your deductible.
Correct.
There you go.
Good question, Kyle.
Yep, great questions from everybody. Keep them coming. If you're just joining us, make sure to ask any questions you have. We're talking about what we wish we knew when we started building our $25 million rental portfolio.
Yes.
So, you want to know my number one thing?
I do.
Yeah.
I thought your first one was number one, so that was like the number 2 one.
Yeah, I wanted to leave my number one for last. I'm putting second now. Number one is I wish I started earlier.
Oh, well, you started young. Holy shit!
Started at 20.
You're gonna make people feel bad out there if they're older than 26.
Well, the point is every single real estate investor I know wishes they started. There's not one that wishes they started later in life. Because I understand if you're going through, if you're younger, don't have any money or credit, but you can build all that up. Every single person I know, and maybe it's a year or two, but man, we do a lot in a year or two.
Yeah.
So I mean, this isn't like a huge regret because I started pretty young, but what if I started building a rental portfolio when I was 22? That'd be.
You started building when you're 14.
Yeah, there you go. I have people talk to me all the time that are 18 that want to get into it.
I love it.
I was thinking about getting into real estate when I was 18. I got people all the time contact me on Instagram saying they're 18, they want to get started in real estate. So
what are you doing at 18?
Not a lot of good things. Not worried about real estate. So anyways, it's just one of those things where wish you got started earlier. If you're 50, start now.
Yes,
the best thing to do, you can do a lot in 5 years. If you're 65, start now.
Yeah.
You can make a lot of financial impact in real estate, especially wholesaling and flipping, but even renting in 2 or 3 years, you can make a huge financial impact on your current financial situation and future. So I would say, if you're thinking about it, educate yourself and get started now. Don't wait. What is the saying? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So,
and then don't sell your rentals.
I
don't have that on my list, but I just add that to
I like it. And don't sell them. Yeah, we don't like to sell our rentals. Our CPA tells us it's okay to sell 1 or 2 a year for tax purposes, but if we're adding 20, then that's okay. But basically, that wasn't more of a huge regret as to more of that was going to be my ending whammy, just to say get started more than anything. It was more advice than a regret. But I have a couple other. Why don't you go to your next one?
Rachel, can you pull up a house for me?
Mm-hmm.
It's 233 Day Drive in Ferguson. Pull it up on Google Maps. This is my number one. And it's probably just number one for me because I was like super aggressive when I started buying. I was just buying. If it was a deal, I'd buy it.
You were aggressive, and I remember hearing you talk at Buyers Club a couple of years ago. You said you're aggressive and cocky.
I was cocky.
Which doesn't make sense to me, but okay.
Why doesn't that make sense?
I don't see you as having that much cockiness in you, but here we go. So here's your day, right?
Yeah, that's 233 Day Drive. Here I'm going to talk. First of all, what I wish I knew before I got started was to buy low maintenance houses. Look at the house from the perspective of, is this a low maintenance house or is this a high maintenance house? Because if you just kind of look at it through that lens, you can kind of tell a low maintenance house from a high maintenance house. And I'm going to take this house on Day Drive and just this was my biggest maintenance house that I ever owned.
I see big trees around there.
And if you can see the overhead version of that is a 1 acre lot, and that has there's not a lot of trees in the front yard there, I bet it has at least 100 trees in the backyard, probably more than that. And I know I spent at least 20 grand on those trees, probably more than that.
That's probably more than you made on rental cash flow. It would be my guess.
So back when I was young and cocky and aggressive, I would buy anything that was a deal. That's what I was looking for. Can I get a deal on this house? And because I was wanting to build up my portfolio, you know. And looking back on it, I should have had another lens of, yeah, it's a great deal, but is it a high maintenance house? And so don't. I recommend people don't do what I did when I was starting out. I would buy anything that was a deal. Look at it from the perspective of, is it a lower maintenance house? Because high maintenance house to just kill all your cash flow.
Well, that was mine. Kind of mine similarly which is one we had the same, is define your avatar. It's okay that changes, but define where you want your houses. Low maintenance houses is what we definitely preach. Low maintenance houses, but define where you want them, what part of town. And part of the reason is so you know, but to me, the bigger reason is so you can tell other people that you're wanting to buy houses. Alex, you're wanting to buy houses. Make sure you have your defined avatar, not say, what was my mistake when I got started was, I'll buy any house in any area. And then I'll try to keep this rental, but if not, I'll wholesale or rehab it. No one's going to send you a house because they're never going to think about you. If you say, I buy in these 4 zip codes, under $200,000, these 20 grand or less, guess what? When that wholesaler real estate agent comes across that house, they're going to think of you because you told them that's exactly what you want. So it's important to know to set up your systems and processes, but mainly it's important so you can explain to other people. So Rach, she's zooming in just to show all the trees, and then we can get to the main screen. But that was, you kind of took my next one, but just defining your avatar, and it can change. Yours changed, mine's changed a little bit. Yours is very defined. Mine's pretty defined too compared to most people, but just having that avatar, I think, is very important.
So let me tell a quick story on that day drive house, because I think there's some lessons in here. So number one, that day drive house that Rachel had a picture up there a minute ago. Number one, it had a huge lot that had like over 100 trees. And when things happen, which they will happen, I had 2 major things happen. One, there was this ice storm in the winter of 2006. I remember this ice storm because it was just a big ice storm, and I don't know why ice storms do this, but it just like stripped branches off all of these trees.
That ice is so heavy that it just, I was in college during that. I remember that our second semester didn't start for a week because of the ice storm, not Springfield. So anyways,
That's funny you remember that.
Yeah.
But yeah, after that ice storm, Jim and I we've spent weeks over there picking up trees because we were too broke to hire it out. We hired out as much as we could, but we spent a lot of time ourselves over there just picking up branches because the city made us. They wouldn't just let us leave the branches in that laying on the ground. And then the tornado of 2011. That tornado of 2011 went right through Ferguson, and it knocked out. So however many trees were there before I bought the house, there's half as many trees now because of the ice storm and the
they tornado. Don't go away for free. It costs money to get them to go away.
All right, so next thing, besides huge lot and trees, I don't know if you can tell from that picture, but that house is below grade. So
is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? I knew the answer to that question.
So I don't know if you can tell, but that driveway used to run right down to the front door. We actually kind of turned it a little bit and did some grading, so because the water used to run right down that driveway, right into the front door.
Great design.
And it was a mold issue, you know. It was just having water running into your house is a horrible design.
Mold just one of the issues with that. There's a lot of other issues with water running in your front door.
Yeah, and so another thing is that house is a slab. You can't really tell that from the picture, but it's a slab. And not only is it a slab, but the heating and cooling went through the concrete, you know, so your furnace
like that. Yeah. That's crazy.
It's terrible. I hated it. Not only was it because the house is below grade, water would run into it, but it would fill up that ductwork. You're rubbing your furnace through and stuff. So and all of our ductwork was all rusted out and stuff. So we ended up having to get the heating and cooling going through the attic. Through the ceiling. So that was a huge expense. And last but not least is we spent a ton of money on that house trying to catch raccoons and squirrels. So if you have a house that's in the woods, I don't know why raccoons and squirrels just love the houses.
Because they're warm or they're cool when it's hot. So yeah, you know, would you like to sleep out under a tree or in a house, Brian?
If you had that photo before we owned it, there was probably a lot more trees around the house. We got rid of them, all of them around the house, to try to eliminate those raccoons and squirrels. But once they get in the house, they always want to keep coming back. I don't know, they create their home or whatever, and they just never want to leave. So anyway, quick story. I don't know if any of those will resonate, but think about those things whenever you are looking for a house. Even if it's a deal, it might not be a good buy for a rental property long term.
Yep, no, that is great advice. All right, so we each got one more. So let's go through them. My next one is rehabs always go over budget. Every time. I promise, especially if it's your first few rentals. If you do your rental rehab and you add 10% fluffer, which you should do, guess what? It's going to go over that. I promise. Just make sure you are buying houses at enough discount and you're putting as much fluff as you can in your rehab. Because what we teach is rental properties, and if you're just logging on or not familiar with the BRRRR strategy, is how we preach and teach buying rental properties without using your own money. And part of the way you do that is rehab the property. You have to, unless you buy it at a crazy deal, more than likely they're going to have to rehab the property at least somewhat, do something to it. And no matter what you do, it's going to cost more than you think. So just do your best to buy as low as you can and be as conservative, which means put your rehab as high as you think. If you think that kitchen's probably a $6,000 kitchen, make it 8. If you think it's probably 8, make it 10. So just make sure you're adding enough fluff in your rehab. And when you're rehabbing, the last little part of that is make sure you're bulletproofing the houses, which we call, which, you know, hard surfaces are better than soft. If you put laminate flooring in over carpet, it might cost a little more up front, but you're not going to have to replace the carpet every 2 years. You're going to laminate will last 10, 15 years probably at least. So, and then obviously tiles, super good to have, and then harder countertops. Just make the thing where you, once the tenant moves out, you clean instead of replace.
Yeah.
So that's my fourth one.
I only wrote down 3.
Oh, did you already go through all 3?
No, I got one more.
All right, let's see your last one. This is a good one. This is one that I never knew until I met Brian. I never knew people did this.
All right, so one of the answer is, one of the things that I wish I knew before I got started building my portfolio that I know now is do a home visit with your prospective tenants and go look at the home that they're living in. So let me back up for just a sec. The reason you do this is the biggest expense that you have in the rental business is when a tenant moves out and you spruce that house up to re-rent it. You know, you want to keep that expense as low as possible. And one of the things that happened to me a few times when we were early in our rental business is we put somebody in the house and they'd stay there a couple of years, and then when they moved out, we had to spend a bunch of money to re-rent it.
You don't get that money back. When you put 10, 20 grand in the house when you first buy it, you get that money back on refinance. It's out of your pocket at this point.
Yeah, it is totally out of your pocket. And following up on what Sam said about bulletproofing your house, that's a great strategy. That helps to keep that rental turnover as low as possible.
Not literally bulletproof. The house we just showed had a bullet hole in the window. You can't bulletproof windows. But anyways,
just making it so many hard surfaces as possible, less low maintenance as possible. But anyway. So what we do to try to make sure that when that tenant is leaving our house 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road, that our house is in as good a shape as possible is we go through our standard tenant screening when somebody applies. But the last piece of our tenant screening is that we do a home visit where they're currently living. So, and that's where we just go over there and sign up the lease over there at their house. But before we sign up the lease, we do a little tour of their house to make sure that they maintain their house well. And by doing that, it prevents somebody to moving into your house that just is somebody that's going to trash the house. Because people typically don't change their ways. If they trash the last house, they're going to trash your house. If they took good care of the last house, they're probably going to take good care of your house. It's a simple little thing. It takes, you know, we got to sign up the lease anyway. We just do it at their house. That's a requirement of us that we do it at their house. And it's prevented us from moving a few people into our houses that would have done damage to our houses.
That's a great. I've never heard of that, and that's a huge way. It takes a little bit extra time, a little bit extra money, but you get that back so much if you just 2 or 3 tenants a year that you don't put in that would ruin your house. That would cost you 10 grand easily. So spend a little bit extra time on the front end is smart. So awesome. Well, we appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully we gave you some good advice. If we did, make sure to follow us on all our socials on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter, everything. We have FasterFreedom under all that. And on YouTube is our big thing. Make sure to subscribe on there, follow. We do 3 videos a week, 1 of these a week, 1 live a week. So our goal is to provide as much value as possible. So please follow us on all our channels. And we have a new comment before we get out of here. Why does it make it do that? Good tip. Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Kyle.
Appreciate it very much, Kyle. All right, well, follow us on all our channels, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we will be back next week at 11:30 to talk more real estate. Thanks for watching, guys.
Awesome.